Welcome to the Sovereign Soul podcast. If you were paying attention, we have changed the name slightly to The Sovereign Soul because the whole fundamentals behind my method is that you are going to be sovereign over your life. You are actually in charge. It was always you, and you're just going to learn how to take command of that. So thank you for listening. And it's Tuesday, so it's time to tune in to ourselves. So wherever you are, just take a moment and settle in. Unless, of course, you're driving, so pay attention if you are driving. But you can still follow along. Wherever you are, become aware of your breath. There's no need to alter or change it. Just bringing your full attention to your lungs. Noticing how they rise and fall. Becoming fully aware of your natural rhythm. And just be here for a few breaths. And then notice if your mind is racing. If it is, give it full permission to do so. Whatever's happening in your body, allow it. And with your next few intentional breaths, call all the parts of you home to your body in this present moment. All the pieces of you in the past, all the pieces of you in the future. Bring them all the way here. Having all of our energy in the present moment allows us to actually work with what is. Our entire lives are actually lived in the present moment. And as you feel those pieces come home to your body, see if you can notice and then name 3 or more emotions that you're experiencing. And then see if you can touch those emotions. Where are you experiencing them in your body? And whatever they are, allow them. There's no need to alter or change them. Giving them the light of your consciousness, of your awareness is enough. And then when you're ready, you can wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, flutter some light into your eyes. And notice what's shifted for you. This practice, or simply calling your attention to your breath for 3 cycles, is enough. It allows you to come back to the present moment and live from here. This is available to you all day, every day. If you aren't pleased with the way your day is going, take 3 conscious breaths and choose again. So, it's May. And we're very excited about May because in May, we are going to be talking about the laws of personal sovereignty. But before we get into that, I want to talk about how I use this method in my practice and what it is like to work with me. The whole purpose of becoming sovereign is so that you can understand your own worth. The reason that I've chosen sovereignty as the foundation of my method is because we continually look for answers outside of us. And this is backwards on every level. And so the sovereignty work that I do with you is that you will essentially learn how to work from the inside out, not the outside in. You will understand that your worth has always been inherent, meaning your worth is a done deal. You don't have to do anything. You just breathe in and out, and you are worthy. You're worthy of psychological, physical, emotional, and spiritual safety and respect. This was always how it's been. And so that's something that takes a minute to relearn. Well, first it's the unlearning of the conditioning that said you aren't worthy and that you must earn it through all of these different ways. And this always makes me think of, it's a beautiful song, Amazing Grace. It's the line, a wretch like me. Like we are these broken, fundamentally flawed from the beginning because we are human. And it's not true. It just isn't. We are these incredible beings. We always have been. We came here this way. We had to learn that we weren't worthy, that we had to earn every ounce of love and respect that we ever got. And that created noise within our bodies. It's dissonance. And so to understand the fundamentals of your worth that's kind of where we start. And it's deeper than what you think. Because the conditioning that we've received is so woven into the fabric of our bodies. And depending on how old you are, it takes a minute. Not always, but sometimes. And then the other is learning that your power and your freedom lies between your ability to react or respond. And so it goes like this. A thought, well, there's a stimulus, right? Or more commonly known as a trigger. And then you create a thought about it. And then there's an emotion. And then the action is either reaction or it's a response. And so the work with me is, can you become aware of when that happens? So when you are triggered, you then become aware of the thought you had. So then you know how the emotion was formed. And then you have this beautiful space where you get to take the time you need to actually respond. This changes the game. When you look out into the world, everything is a reaction. Response is the flex. So that's two of the fundamental things that we go over. And then there's also the understanding that your lived experience it has a system. Just like we have our physical anatomy, our lived experiences create almost a spiritual anatomy or emotional anatomy that we then need to learn. So we're going to learn the map of you, what happened to you, and then be able to learn and gain the wisdom from all those experiences so that you get to rewrite your emotional, your spiritual anatomy so that it functions for you. And so you're going to understand that you are the creator of your experience, and rather you're the co-creator. So depending on your spiritual beliefs, that's God, that's universe, that's source, that's whom or whatever. But there is another source to this. And so I think my favorite way of looking at this is understanding that you've got to be aware of your fuel source. What is giving you the fuel for your life right now? Are you working off of scarcity? Are you working off of fear? Is that running you? Are you running yourself ragged because you're trying to prove something because you're not enough? Whatever you do is not enough, and you're just hoping that in some way you can do that. And so the fuel is frantic. The fuel is, it's essentially poison. And it is a fuel source that will run out. It is a fuel source that gives you, sometimes it's short bursts. Some people can live with it their entire lives, but you watch it as it deteriorates their ability to connect with the deepest parts of themselves, with their spirit, if you will. So can you become aware of the fuel source with which you live your life and understand that you have the option to change that at any point to a fuel source that is, to stay with the metaphor, clean, renewable, something that actually nourishes as it courses through your body, as opposed to depletes and harming. Fear, scarcity, shame. That will deplete you. It will break you at some point. And whether that means that you just no longer have access to joy and you're kind of going through the motions, or if it actually breaks you, which frankly is a gift. These breakdowns are breakthroughs. But not everybody allows the breakdown, which is kind of a bummer. So, what is your fuel source? Where are you getting your energy from? You get to learn that your power source is you. This is empowerment. Empowerment broken down, M is self, power is energy, right? And then ment is to apply. How can you apply power from the self? So a lot of my method is energy work in a very practical sense and in a woo-woo sense too. But really, it is becoming the master of your own power, and how are you using it? And where are you giving it away? No one can take your energy. Nobody. But we are so accustomed to giving it away that it actually feels like it's possible. And so a lot of this just becomes like very practical, and it's almost like you create a spreadsheet of sorts. Okay, I'm looking at my whole life. I'm going to zoom out and not have judgment on it. Where is my energy going? Where am I giving it away? Where can I call it home? Now, because you've been doing that for so long, we're going to look at that and make sure that we don't cut off things too quickly. We don't want to harm the body any longer. We want to heal it. And so depending on what's going on with your system, with your life, working with me, we're going to bring all that energy home. We will heal what needs to be healed in a way that is actually good for your body, something that is sustainable. Gentleness is the medicine here. What we were taught was harm and force. So the medicine is gentleness and acceptance and time and patience. We hear so much, I didn't have a choice. I don't have a choice. This is so difficult. I just don't have a choice. The language alone makes that true. But what is actually happening is you did not have control as a child of what happened to you. But once you're a grown-up, you get to choose to heal. You get to choose to take responsibility for your experience now. And that looks like dealing with what happened to you. But it's always a choice. Choice implies responsibility. And responsibility is very, very difficult. It's why all the adulting stuff is so funny. Because it's a bummer. But it also is our freedom. So do you want to take responsibility for your own life? Which can sound kind of harsh. And I was just talking about gentleness. So it's about a reframe of what the experience will feel like, look like. Responsibility is kind of categorized in the same grouping as discipline. We hear it as a negative. It's like this thing that we're like, I guess I got to be more disciplined. That sucks. Instead of, I get to choose. I get to choose to define discipline and responsibility as an act of self-love. And I get to choose now as a grown-up where my integrity, my value system, where it comes from. And I'm going to intentionally choose it so that it becomes mine. And so that looks like you look at your life and you're like, where did I get all of these beliefs from? Where did I get my morality from? Where did I get my integrity from? And do I still want it? Does this still work for me? Am I consciously choosing my belief system? Does it work for me now? If yes, great, wonderful. But when you consciously choose that, it changes the energy source. You aren't outsourcing it. It's you. It's choice. And you always have a choice. In every moment of every day, you have a choice to redirect your life. That's it. And then to change your life, it's acting on that over and over and over. The compounding of time is a gift. You got to start where you are. You get to. And so redefining responsibility as something that empowers you and something that is a gift to you. All of a sudden, the energy is coming from you for you. And you will notice the difference. You will feel different and you will move differently. And when it gets hard, and it will, because it's for you from you, you will push through it. Might take a minute, but you'll do it. We're very simple beings, actually. Complicated houseplants, I believe, is a joke. It's fantastic because it's true. You need sunshine and you need water. You need rest. And you need to not make it so damn complicated. You were always meant to choose your own life for you. And it always feels backwards to be like, wait a minute, you're telling me that if I focus on myself and take care of myself, that's going to help the world? Yep. If you understand your worth in every cell of your body, if you understand that there never was scarcity, that fear is not meant to overtake your life and shut you down, but just to alert you, like, hey, did you think about that? And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't. Thank you so much. All right, now go back to the back seat. You will not live in reaction. You will live in curiosity. And so that worry about being a good person and making the world a better place, it's done. The oxygen mask on you first. This is what this looks like. When you show yourself that you deserve and are valuable enough to give yourself the time and care that you deserve, not only are you giving permission for other people to do this, you will have that renewable source to where you can give to people. You can actually show up to people, or you can do them one of the deepest kindnesses and say, I actually don't have capacity for that right now. Do you know what that does? It prevents resentment. And resentment is the killer of all good things. Truly. So, choice. Let's talk about choice for a moment. Choice and consequence. Consequence is usually only viewed as a negative, right? Like, oh, and like for kids, we're like, do you want those consequences? When really, consequence is just the natural outcome of things, right? If you choose to go to sleep at night and get a good night's rest, the consequence is you're rested, right? So to look at this from a very practical, is it practical? Practical is not the word I'm looking for. What is it? It's what is. We don't need to like label it anything other than that is what happens, right? It's gravity. And so understanding that choice and consequence, if you can observe it and take the judgment off of the consequence and become curious about it, because this is how we learn best. Okay. Humans actually need to make mistakes. Think about a toddler learning to walk. Are you making fun of them because they fall over? No, it's the cutest shit in the world. We're like, you're doing it. You're so great. And we don't expect them to be able to run and do all these complicated maneuvers that require a mastery of the body. We think it's incredible that they're doing it. This is the same concept for you. If you are learning something new, you're going to have to start from the beginning. You can't start 20 steps ahead. And guess what? It's great. We love the wobble. We love the stumble. It means you're trying. And that one day you won't do that anymore. But we learn that way. So we're constantly using our energy to make sure that we don't make mistakes. Instead of, let me give this my all, see what happens, and then be like, this worked, this didn't. All right, now I have information. This is what curiosity, moving through this world with curiosity instead of, why am I like this? It's like, isn't it interesting that I choose to walk through the world this way? I don't care for some of this. Let me see if I can alter a thing or two. So in relation to karma, right, which is commonly known as a bitch, instead it's really the gift. Karma's here to awaken us. Consequence is here to be like, oh, that sucked. I would not like to experience that again. But instead we internalize it and go, oh, I must deserve that because if I were perfect, then I wouldn't make the mistake. So the question is, can you allow yourself to learn from the consequence? Can you allow karma to awaken you and be like, oh, I don't want that anymore. Okay, well, what do I need to do? How do I need to move different to get different? That's what it looks like to take the wisdom of the consequence, the wisdom from the karma. When you do that, it will put you on your life path, otherwise known as dharma. Not just a cute sitcom from the 90s. That is the most obscure reference. And I'm just, if you got that reference, please hit me up. That'll make me feel really good. The point is, we are the creators of our experience. Do you want to create? It's as simple as that. Life is not as hard as we make it. Humans are amazing at making things way harder than they need to be. Because we are so afraid of that clean pain in the moment. We will run from it. We will sprint from it. The energy we will use to not experience what is actually happening is kind of impressive, actually. And then, you throw the ego in there. The ego that feeds off of the fuel of fear, scarcity, and shame. Then we have ourselves the perfect storm. So this becomes a question of, do you want to take responsibility, essentially, which sounds like such a bummer, except for it's not. It's such a relief. And this is what we're actually looking for. People are looking for relief. When people come to work with me, they are looking for relief. They can't take it anymore. And it's the most exciting thing. I get so excited for people and they're like, this is the worst. I'm like, I know, but the karma has woken you up to the possibility of what your life could become. It's a very exciting thing. So the power of choice becomes the skill to be able to take the wisdom from your mistakes, using big quotes over here, all right? It's not losing, it's learning. Can you learn from the losses? Can you learn to be a fantastic loser? Seriously. It's such a gift. And then can you then learn how? Do you want to? Because everything is just kind of here for you. Is it for you? Do you want it? You can learn how to live your life from the fuel source of wisdom, faith, and the energy that is yours. The other thing is that you will learn to let go of the idea of them. Okay? Everybody's like, well, they always get this and their life is great and they don't understand but they're doing what, like, why can't I just be them? And often people are talking about like maybe a person, but then they don't even realize that they have created this, like, there's all these others who, like, they must have the secret because their life is so good. And I have worked with some incredibly, like, mind-bogglingly wealthy people. And then all the way down the socioeconomic ladder. Trust me. Or don't, I guess, but take my word for it. You don't know what's going on in other people's lives. You don't. You think you do. When you put your attention on them, that is giving your energy away. Pull that shit home and go, I actually don't know what's going on with their life because the only person's life that I actually have all the information for is my own. And so if you are wanting what they have, right? And then I think the more common thing would be like, oh, so you're jealous, right? Jealousy gets a bad rap. Jealousy's here to tell us that that's what we want. We want that experience. That's it. And be like, oh, thank you so much, jealousy. I'm not going to let this turn into the unharmonized version, which is envy, right? And let that dictate my life. Instead, I'm going to be like, I want that. Now I'm going to call my energy home and say, how do we get that for ourselves? That's why we are inspired by other things. If you aren't inspired by it, it's not for you. So if you're inspired by it and it gets to jealousy, just be like, oh, thank you. Because that powerful emotion, it's there to create change for you. And so when you work with me, I'm going to teach you how to understand your emotions. What are they here to teach you? This is why it's so important to become present. This is why in every tune in, I'm like, what emotions are present for you? And usually we're running around and our days are busy. It's enough to just note them. But then when you work with me, we're going to intentionally, you're going to learn how to say, what are you here to teach me? How can I listen? Once you've received the information, they will flow out and you will become the empty vessel to allow miracles to flow through you. When you are full, when your body is filled with noise, when your experience is filled with nothing but doing, nothing can come in. You get to become a clear channel so that you can hear you. So that all of your experiences that are having, that you are actually calling into your experience so that you can learn from them. They're meant to pass. They're meant to flow through you. Emptiness. Okay. It's another reframe. I feel nobody wants to feel empty because they perceive it as being alone. They don't know. It's the unknown. It's like if I sit alone with my own thoughts and feelings, that's terrifying. And so we create all of this chaos so that we don't have to do it. Because it is painful at first. And the only reason it's painful at first is because you've let it build up. Of course you have. That's what we were taught. Okay. So then in our sessions, we will feel through all of those things. We're going to be able to release the stagnancy so that things can flow again. One of the most important things that I do with my clients is help them understand that, of course, betrayal from others is extraordinarily painful. That's real. But what you actually need to heal from is self-betrayal. And that when things happen to you that it creates a soul fracture. And look, it does not need to be this huge, terrible thing. People really get that confused. Pain is pain. And it actually kind of bums us out. We're like, oh, was your life hard? Was it hard to pick between your 2 vacation homes? We love to put a judgment on it. Instead, it's, was the thing that you experienced painful to you? If yes, then it was painful. And we do the thing where like, well, somebody else has it worse. That's just a fact. You actually don't need to factor that in. That's often true. And it's a good thing to be aware of it, I suppose, but we do not let that enter in a healing. And so trauma is really just anything that your system can't handle. That's what creates the break. So when that happens, there's a soul fracture and a piece of you kind of breaks off and is lodged somewhere in your body, right? And so from that, we then behave as if that thing we deserved it. That's what we kind of understand from it. And then that piece that broke off remains the age that it happened and turns into a protection for you. Because that thing is going to make sure that thing never happens again. And it often metastasizes into something that then hinders your life. And so from the fracture, you then begin to self-betray. So you will do these things that you learned you deserved from the fracture, and you do them to yourself over and over and over. So, as I've said before, it's always you. You are the answer. And sometimes you are the drama. Most of the time, you're the drama. It's a bummer. To work through the grief of that, the pain of that, but then to understand that there was always a reason why you did that. You get to learn how to forgive yourself. Now, forgiveness, depending on where you are on the spectrum of religion, can be triggering. That word has a lot of weight to it. But this principle, this is such a potent principle of forgiveness. You get to redefine it. You get to hold yourself in forgiveness and say, I know why you did what you did. And that really hurt us. But then you get to forgive, which is to say, to allow it to flow through you, and you take the wisdom from it instead of carrying the weight of it around. And the weight actually increases as time goes on. And forgiveness is rather painful in my experience. And it requires grief. And grief. Woo, do people run from grief? We don't want to feel it. And it's interesting to me that we don't, because every time we choose to love something, whether it be ourselves, career, person, we are making the agreement that we will grieve it. And so love is nothing without grief. When you hear that somebody died that you didn't know, there is that moment where you recognize that a member of our human family is no longer with us. And you take a moment. It's sobering. And then you move on with your day. Some people feel guilty for this, but it's just how it is, because you didn't know them. You didn't love them. And so the grief is like, it's a flash. If you loved something or someone deeply, then the grief will be intense. But the grief is also a gift. It lets you know that you loved fully. But we don't want to feel it. We don't want to feel anything painful. Why is that? Why do we avoid the pain so much? Life is actually not meant to be this series of skipping through the fields. We came here to feel. Our entire physical anatomy suggests it. Hello, the amount of nerves that we have. We're here to feel. We're here to learn from that. And so to grieve self-betrayal, this is some heavy shit. But we often look at it as impossible, or we run from it. And so we will use every bit of energy we have to outrun it. All while saying, why is the life I want evading me, avoiding me, not coming to me? That's why. You will also learn in every cell of your body that this healing is not about never experiencing pain again, but it is about experiencing clean pain. And so that process of there's a trigger, thought, emotion, action, reaction, or response, it becomes really quick. So you still experience it, but sometimes you barely register it. That's what healing has been like. I can only speak for myself, right? But it's like, it's not that I don't feel anymore. It's that it does not take over my life. I've told the story a lot. This December, I was at Disneyland, literally with my mouse ears on, standing in line for the Incredicoaster, and I felt despair flood my body. And I felt it everywhere, from the crown of my head to the tips of my toes. I was completely overcome by it. And for about a split second, I panicked. And then because I have been practicing this so long, the despair flowed in, and I started crying right there in the world's happiest place. And then it was gone. Just like that. And then I was crying because the gratitude that I felt, I realized what had happened. Things that I had been processing and meeting for so long allowed me to be that clear vessel. My body needed to experience that deep, very unpleasant emotion. It lasted for like 5 minutes. That's it. And the healing that came through from that is, I don't really know how to describe it, because everything is different from that point on. I have a natural ability to access joy. This is something completely different. And so I got into this work because I remember my first panic attack. I was 20 years old and I was in the dermatologist's office, and I thought, we're finally having that earthquake that Utah's overdue for. Hopefully that didn't cause too much anxiety for some of you. But that's what it felt like. I thought it felt like the entire room was shaking, and I looked around and I was like, why is no one else scared? I didn't know. And those continued. They did not let up. They were awful. And I continue to have experiences in my life that I did not understand. Why is all this shit happening to me all the time? And then fast forward a few years of living and surviving, truly only surviving that way. And then I discovered this work. I was riddled with anxiety. I was depressed. I was, at many points, would toggle from suicidal ideation to just plain suicidal. I was medicated. I was in despair, even though I was running from it. And so it's worse, right? The resistance I created. I was just suffering. Relationships were okay. Everything I tried to do professionally fell on its face. And it's like I barely remember that was my life. Because I didn't leave any of myself behind. All of those women are with me. but I took the wisdom from those experiences. And so it feels like like a movie I watched. And the fulfillment, the joy, honestly, the peace alone. I'm in awe. I'm in awe of myself. I'm in awe of all those women that made all of these micro choices to stop surviving, to understand my fundamental worth, to take responsibility for the creation of my life, to now where every day, you guys, I experience peace, joy, sometimes even euphoria. Now, it's not all day, every day. That's not how it's supposed to be. I still experience pain, but the underlying feeling is contentment. It's the shit, you guys. It's the best. Sometimes I will just find myself like giggling. I'm like, this used to be so hard, and it's not, it's just not anymore. And so I suppose this is like my own testimonial of my work, because I started out in traditional therapy. It was wonderful. I had the best therapist, you guys. She was incredible. She was perfect for me. But then as I started to learn myself, as I started to experience my own sovereignty and really understanding that I know best what I need, my body and me have been present for every moment in my life. I learned the anatomy of my lived experiences. I memorized it so that it could become essentially my map that I could then recalibrate, rewrite, and I have. Learning you is the gift you can give yourself. Learn every single thing about you, and then be able to look at the whole of you, especially the parts that you don't want anyone to see, and love them as they are. Not healed, not better, not when your life is great. Love them for what they are in that moment and love them fully. You still don't have to tell anybody about them, but love them. And this is where shame lifts. And so you can talk about your lived experiences as the gift that they were for you because you took the lesson. I've mentioned before that I do not love the word healer, but I use it because people understand it to a point, because we are so convinced that our power is outside of us that we need to go to a healer, when really all I am is a guide. I can't heal you. Only you can do that. But I can show you how to do it. And my particular modality is that we're going to learn from your own anatomy, not from anybody else's. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, there are things that kind of work because humans are, again, complicated houseplants. But there is nuance here. And we find those little gems of nuance that make you you. And so we will speak to you the way you need to do it. So your healing becomes your own. This is what it means to become sovereign. We do not need people to become carbon copies of anybody else. We need you to become more fully you. That's what's needed. The more that you can see that, yes, we are all very, very similar, but no two people are the same. So you get to celebrate that. Instead of saying, why am I like this? You're going to be like, it's so amazing that I'm like this. And you will start to Notice the absurdities of life, which will bring you joy because people make their life so hard that it's like, oh boy, I used to do that. There's empathy and compassion there. You have to start with yourself. Whatever you want to see in the world, you have to begin with yourself. I mean, you can try. You can absolutely try. Knock yourself out. Is it efficient? Is it effective? Does it actually work? It doesn't. What works is to everything that you are wanting, all the change in the world, but specifically the desires you have, however you want love in your life, however you want relationships with your life, whatever it is, give it to yourself first. Learn how to give it to you. If you understand your needs, then you can teach people how to love you, how to show up for you. And if they don't, they aren't for you. This is how you find your people. This is how you find your path. Hi, these are all the needs I have. Would you like to meet them? If the person's like, no, thank you. Then you're like, all right, I wish you well. And then you will tend to your heart because it will hurt because you are human. And again, this is not about never feeling pain again. It's about feeling it in a clean way, letting it flow through and retaining the wisdom. Okay, how do I wrap this up? Oh, and so that's just a little overview of the fundamentals of the sovereignty work that we do together. But this month, we're going to go over all of the laws so that you can start to apply these to your life. So if these are the fundamentals, we're going to get into the basics. Is that the same thing? It might be the same thing. You get it. There's just more. But I have come up with these laws that if you can first understand the concept, right? That means that it is information that's in your brain. Then when you let it filter down and become a part of your body, a part of your system, that's when it's truth for you. It's very exciting. I'm so excited for this whole month. It's going to be real good. So stay tuned. Buckle up. You can find me on Instagram at Meikel Reese. You can find me on TikTok at Meikel C. Reese. You can find me on meikelreese.com, or you can find me on YouTube. So the Sovereign Soul podcast, again, renamed. We're going to try to stick with this one. Stay with me. We're just trying to make it make sense. But Googling my name's real helpful because it's very unique. Thanks, parents. Meikel. And hit me up. I'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, be gentle with yourselves.